Sample delay. What we can do here is we can simply delay the left channel away from the right channel, and that'll give you the uber stereo effect. Problem with this is though, beware of phase. Always check the mono compatibility to make sure that the sound doesn't disappear. Okay, now at this point it's good to go and check the master output. Got output there. We're doing okay. We're not actually, you can take the limiter off. We're doing really well. We're not clipping it at all. Okay, let's re-enable the auxiliaries so we can see how these, yep, the drums are all good, everything's good, so we're doing okay so far. So that's pretty much all the drums. Now there's this tambourine. Let's go to the tambourine again, EQ, let's do a low cut on the tambourine. As I mentioned previously, even though you can't hear, let's take that all the way up to the point where you can hear it. Okay. Let's turn up that kick a little bit because it's got lost. There we go. So that's pretty much all our loops. We've got the 909. Again, 909, make sure you go in there, you take out the low end, the low cut it. Previously on the episode before this, in the arrangement, we actually inserted a sidechain compressor on the 909. Take that off. Just gives it more of a pumping feel, fits it in the groove a little bit. Okay, you can pretty much hear everything there. It's all rocking along nicely. We've got some panning going on. We've pumped that one over there. The tambourine loop's over there. We've stereoized this guru loop, which sort of just sits it back a little bit. Take that off and just gives it a bit more presence in the mix, I think. You can mute the bass line for now. Beautiful. Let's now go over to the drum group, because there's certain things we can do with the drums, because now we've actually sent the drums to one group. We can treat the drums as one file almost, if you want. We can treat the drums as a group. So what I like to do is actually, there's a few techniques you can use here. We can either compress the whole thing, which would be a case of just opening up the compressor. There are some actual presets in here if you want to go straight there. Drum kit compression. You can see that that's quite light. Make sure auto gain is off. So what we've got on this compressor for the drums here, I'll quickly take you through it. This little preset that already loads up, let me show you, take you through it. We've got, it's letting a little bit of attack through. We could do with some more. Let's go 10 milliseconds. We actually want the attack to come through of the drums, but we want it to squash as it's gone through. So we don't want to take the transients away. We've got a ratio of 4, but we've only got a slight threshold. We've only getting a gain reduction of around about 2 or 3. Bypass that. It's just enough to sort of glue the whole thing together. We're working on RMS instead of peak. If we turn it to peak, it's a far more squashed thing. Root mean square, the RMS one, is a far more subtle compressor. You know, we've actually got a bit of pumping because the release is quite low, which is quite nice for this kind of track. Okay, so there we go, that's the compressor. Let's go to our drum bus again. The next thing I like to use is the PSP one down here. Hopefully this will work. Vintage Warmer 2. is a beautiful plugin, and the reason why, it's so simple to use. I'll go right in there. You can simply turn up the drive. That's a bit like the overdrive plugin I was showing you before. If we turn this knee setting up here, you can actually see here where it says 1.4. We're actually adding a bit of compression to it. And also there's some basic EQs and things. So let's EQ the top end a bit, around about 10 kilohertz. Right there. So we'll increase that a little bit. We can go right in there and dial some low end in if we want as well. Take it down to about 80. Be very subtle with these things though. Make sure that you don't ever put anything more than 1 or 2 decibels. If you have to, then there's something wrong with your drums in the first place. If you're really having to fix it a lot at this stage, it means that your drums aren't right. Remember that. Picking sounds is the most important thing in the first place. Okay, so there's the PSP. Now we can compare the PSP to the compressor by simply bypassing that. PSP vintage warmer, is definitely fatter, so I like that. We'll stick with that. That's really nice. We're just giving it that little bit of fatness. It doesn't seem to be taking the bass out of it at all. It seems to be fattening it up. Now, one thing we want to do, because we've got a bit of a level balance going on, let's turn the output down so the compressed version compares to the actual original version. Right down. You can see we took it down like by almost 3 decibels. There we go. To make sure that, it's just not louder, because sometimes things sound better because they're louder. It's not necessarily that they sound any better, it's just they've been turned up a lot, so which is what this effect does. We're putting some extra drive on there, which is the tape saturation effect, and that's just basically increasing the volume, so beware of that. Make sure that you do a comparison between the final out and the original input. That's really nice. We can see that that's pumping along nicely. Okay. What we can also do as well is actually send a version of the drums to one of our spare auxiliaries here, auxiliary 8, and we'll name this now drum compression. What we're going to do here is we're going to send a portion of the drums to that auxiliary. We're going to put our Logic compressor on there. We're going to take our vintage warmer off. Right, we're going to get a mega compressed version of the drums here. Okay, we're even going to limit it as well. Let's have a look. We're into the right thing. Uber compressed. If we can, I think you can solo it. I'm not sure. If we can solo it, I'll show you. No, you can't solo that when you send it. So the thing to do here is, now this technique is called parallel compression. And what you're doing is you're leaving the original channel untouched. So you've got all the dynamics of the drums there, but you're actually bringing in an uber compressed version along with the original channel, which gives you the sound of the compressor, but still retains all the dynamics from the original group. You simply bring that in until it starts to feel nice. You can hear it makes it sound fatter and bigger, but we've still got this channel here, which will give you all the dynamics of the original drums. Okay? Go back to our bass line. put a limiter on there as well. Make sure. Make sure we're not limiting it too much. Just even out there. There we go, nice. Keep saving, remember. So there we go, we got quite a fat drum groove going on there, and the bass line's fitting in quite nice. Okay, let's move on now to our lead sounds. Right, so again, we've done a little bit of mixing on these already, and we've actually created the sound earlier in a previous episode, so the sound's pretty much in the pocket, so it's a case of just bringing it up, making sure that the level's right in relation to everything else. So, our lead line. Let's start actually with our chord line. Now, lead line and chord pattern, we will group them up and we'll send them to our synth bus. Here we go, synths. And I'll show you why in a bit. We can do the same thing with the synths and with the bass, etc., as what we've done with the drums. We can treat them as a whole. You know, make them sit together as one rather than two separate things. So let's go and have a look at the EQ on this. Now I've actually, you've noticed here, if you zoom in on this, that we've took quite a lot of the bottom end out of this sound. So we can actually have it back in, which is nice. And it's not causing too many problems, so we'll leave it back in there. Let's move to our lead sound. Oops. Make sure you deselect what you've already done. I think we might have to actually EQ the lead sound a little bit. We'll EQ the lead sound a little bit. We'll actually add a little bit more of a mid frequency. So let's sweep. Again, it's just a case of separating the two sounds out from each other. So you can see we boosted it around about 3.7. I'll zoom in and show you. We boosted around about 3.7, which is quite a nice frequency for that sound. We'll come out of there. And what we'll do is we'll go to our chord pattern here. And we'll drop at that point. So we've actually cut a little bit out of there, only like 2 dBs. We boosted on the other one, and we've cut there. Make sure those frequencies aren't clashing. But we boosted, and here you can see around about 15 on that one. So they're not sitting in the same frequency range. It's all a case of carving out holes. It's a case of carving out holes for each sound. So each sound fits in its own little pocket, basically, in its own little frequency pocket. Okay. Sounding pretty nice so far. Let's have a look what we've got next. We'll go to the track now. So we've got, okay. We've got our effects next, don't we? So let's go over to the effects. We can see over here. Again, we're going to, before we go to our effects actually, what we'll do is our chord pattern and our lead pattern are actually grouped over here in the synths. We'll put a little bit of compression on that.